Okay, great. So let me just interrupt real quick. So this session is on organizing lessons, the big picture for literacy lesson planning, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our guest, Katie Deering, and she's going to talk to us tonight about Google Classroom, Canvas, and other ways of organizing her instruction. And even though she's secondary, a lot of what she's doing with her lessons can be done, you know, in elementary as well. So hope you can make connections tonight. And then we'll have time for Q&A. So Katie, go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for just for tuning in. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself, my experiences, and then we'll start talking about some LMSs. I have a total of 9 years teaching experience. I actually spent my first year teaching 11th grade English. I thought I would never do that again, and so I moved to the elementary level, taught a little bit of third grade, a little bit of preschool, and then after staying at home a year with my daughter, I actually had the opportunity to come back to the high school classroom, and I've been there now for 4 more years. So it's been really, really wonderful. I teach at Frontier High School in Mansfield ISD, and that is a career tech school. So a lot of my kids have career concentrations, audio visual, health science, STEM robotics, things like that. So it's really, really cool to get to work with them. They're very unique kiddos. And I'm currently in the master's program, UTA. I'm working on my master's in curriculum and instruction and literacy studies. I will be graduating, fingers crossed, in June. Yay. And my husband works for Carroll ISD. He's actually in the communications department there. And I have a daughter who's about to be 5 in a few weeks, and she starts kinder next year. So she's kind of on her own little literacy journey herself. So I just want to share with you guys a couple of things that have made my teaching experience so much easier, and that is the use of LMSs. And so LMS, if you don't know what that stands for, is a learning management system, basically what Blackboard does for us. It's a way to digitally connect to your students. It's a way to consolidate a lot of the documents that you have at the beginning of the year, first day of school things, class rules, handouts, assignments, things like that. It's just a great forum for kids to be able to access all your class materials at once. It streamlines everything, and it's really great. So I'm going to talk to you about 2 that I have used a lot, and 2 that I think are really wonderful and that can work for pretty much every grade level. And the first one is Google Classroom. And the great thing about Google Classroom is that Google kind of runs the world right now, right? Like we have Google Docs and Google Slides and Google Forms and all of those things. And so Google Classroom syncs fantastically with all of those things. The actual definition of what is Google Classroom, according to the website, is that it's a free web service for schools, nonprofits, and anyone with a personal Google account. And it makes it easy for learners and instructors to connect. So these are some of the benefits that I have experienced in using Google Classroom. Hey Shelby, I just saw that you joined the session. Welcome. The first area that I think Google Classroom really serves us well is to give students instant feedback. I will tell you that in my first couple of years of teaching, one of my biggest struggles is passing back papers in a timely manner and getting kids feedback on their assessments or on their activities. With Google Classroom, you can quickly see who has or hasn't turned in their work, and I'll show you some screenshots here in a second of what that looks like. You can give them real-time feedback and grades. So, I mean, within 30 seconds, if I want to, if they turn something in at 5 o'clock at night, I would be able to go on there and comment and grade very quickly, and they can see that information. It's very, very easy to share information. So if I have an announcement or if I want to add on something to an assignment that I wasn't able to tell students in class, if a student is absent and they're wanting to make sure that they stay connected, things like that, Google Classroom is really easy to do that. The second area is that it's super efficient. Very, very easy to set up. All you need to do to add your kids is you have a little tiny code. And so for my high school kiddos, they're able to do it from their device. If they have a cell phone, they can do it that way. Mansfield is one-to-one with their tech students have small laptops, and so we did it that way for a while. It's also free. Free is great. Free is great, especially when you're starting out and you're kind of having to build your classroom library and do all of these things. Having a resource that's that easy and free is wonderful. And yes, Dr. Symington, I also love the paperless part because everything seamlessly connects together in one place. And then the third area that I think is great is how organized it is. All of the materials that you create, whether you're creating an assignment or students are turning in work, it syncs into a Google Drive folder that connects directly to your Google Drive. It also syncs, like I said earlier, with all Google Apps. So you can do a whole lot of really cool collaborative connections with Google Docs. And then there's a to-do page on there where assignments show up, so students can go and they can literally see a checklist of all of the things that they have to do. So what are some things that you can do in Google Classroom? And Shelby, I see that you had a question about incorporating it into an elementary classroom. I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit when I get to my screenshot. So if I don't answer your question, please make sure you ask again so that I can make sure that you get the answers that you need. So as far as teachers, I can create and manage classes, assignments, and grades. I could do something like that as a high school teacher with my actual class. So in a second, I'll show you the setup that I used last year. But I could also use it on my campus. I've had administrators use Google Classroom to be able to have some kind of connected way where we can share resources together. You could also use it with your parents. You could do newsletters that way and post questions and information, and you can have your parents on there as well. If you have a little bit of the older students, I know some of you are wanting to do something with 5th and 6th graders, they would be able to possibly handle doing a discussion question on Google Classroom. But it's great documentation. None of it ever goes away. So as far as student responses, things like that, you can archive your class. It never goes away, so that's great. A big, just huge struggle that kiddos have these days is staying organized. They have so much to do, and they just have a really hard time keeping everything together. So Google Classroom helps them to keep track of all the things that they need. They're able to submit assignments from home, which is great, or from the library, from tutoring, things like that. Hi, Kylie, welcome. And they're also able to get more of that instant feedback. Now, parents, this is really great for parents because they can request access and then they can get an email summary of their students' work. So as far as the communication issue sometimes with kids of, hey, do you have homework? Nope, I sure don't. And then suddenly mom calls the teacher and wow, we had 6 missing assignments. Parents on Google Classroom can have that extra source of accountability. And then administrators as well. They, like I said earlier, they can use Google Classroom in a way of keeping things organized within their campus. They can ask for administrator access for all the teachers' Google Classrooms in the campus so that they can kind of monitor that as well. I want to show you guys what it looks like. So this is the page that I used last year. These are all the different classes. And as you can see, I have we have an A-B schedule, block schedule. So I had one class for each block. For my English 3 and then for my AP Lit, and then I have my one section of creative writing. This is actually a staff development Google Classroom. So we did a really cool cohort group with TCU. We did some collaboration there, and so we have a class there that we've used as well. So once you click into a class, it looks a little bit like this. You get to customize it. You can pick your banner, and this becomes your stream. So if you look up here at the top, there's the option for stream, students, and about. So your stream is where any assignments will show up, any announcements will show up if you do a discussion question, things like that. It's all going to be on your stream, very similar to your news feed on Facebook. So on that little arrow on the bottom, I tried to line it up as best I can. I don't know if I actually succeeded, but it gives a little pop-up menu for you. So whatever you want to do, do you want to create an assignment? Do you want to ask a question? Do you want to recycle a post that you've done before? And it gives you all of those very easy to access. You also have an option to create a more personalized home page. This is a great place where you can put any documents that your parents or your kids would want to access. So for me as a high school teacher, I always put my syllabus there. I used to have a class website where we would do different blogging and interactive things there, so I would post the URL to the website. This is for my AP class, so we had our timed writing rubric. And there's also a way for the kids to click on the classroom calendar, and it takes it to their Google Cal. It syncs with Google Calendar, and it shows when things are due. So here's a couple of other things that I think are really cool, make Google Classroom pretty easy. There's also an option to have a teacher to-do list. So I will tell you guys, as a first-year teacher, I told you that passing things back was a huge struggle. Well, sometimes it would be a struggle to stay on top of grading because you're trying to plan, you're creating new lesson plans and all of those things. And you're also just trying to navigate this whole teaching thing and try to figure it out and get your own style together. So having some kind of a streamlined to-do list of what I want to grade, how much has been done, how much has not been done, things like that, it makes it really easy. And then in the bottom left corner, this is what an assignment looks like as part of the stream. So you'll see the name of the assignment, and then it'll have whatever documents that you need, and it's really, really small type, but basically what that says is each student will get a copy. So I can create one document as an assignment, and I can put it in Google Classroom, and it will personalize that document and make one individual one for each of my kids with their names on it. So that's pretty cool. If we're doing a reading guide and we're doing it online, I can just make a template and then I can put it in there, and it will give each of my students another reading guide so that they're not trying to go in and make their own copy or they're writing on each other's document. So I think that's pretty convenient. Okay, so negatives about using Google Classroom. So I'll start kind of on the right and go left. One of the things with parent communication, they can request access, but it's a little more difficult because there's this whole approval process. They have to go in with their email that they get from you and verify and all of those things. So it's not as easy as student access where they just have the code and it's done in 10 seconds. As far as grading goes, if you're wanting to make more comments than the actual number, you're going to have to go into Classroom, or you're going to have to go into the Google Doc or Google Form, whatever, and add a comment that way. Last year when I was using it, it wouldn't give me notifications when students would write a comment on their assignment. I would just kind of stumble upon them. So that was a frustrating thing. I don't know if they've changed that yet or not. And then the last one is I do a lot of rubric grading, and I know in my graduate courses in Blackboard, everything is rubric based, which I love and I appreciate, helps me kind of get my thoughts together. And there's no real rubric use for Google Classroom. It's pretty cut and dry. And then the third area, as far as resources, it does require internet access. So if your kids are wanting to work on something outside of class, if they don't have internet at home, it's going to be hard for them. They can't turn anything in on Google Classroom if they don't have that internet access. It's also not as friendly with non-Google applications. So one example of that would be Keynote and Pages. Google Classroom doesn't like those two formats. So I would always tell my students to use PowerPoint or Google Slides to make it easier. And then there's no real area for shared lessons or assignments, which maybe that doesn't seem like something that would be necessary, but Canvas does have that, and it's amazing. And so I had to put it on there as a Google Classroom issue. So again, as far as some of the things with Google Classroom, Shelby, I hope I answered that a little bit with how it would work with an elementary classroom. One thing that's also really great about any of these LMS platforms to you guys is that there are so many internet tutorials out there. That's how I learned, is just playing with it and going and kind of teaching myself. So that's one of the awesome things about it. I want to talk about Canvas, and Canvas is actually what I use right now. I've made the move from Google Classroom to Canvas. And Canvas is kind of the same thing. It's a learning management system. It's cloud-based. It connects all of the digital tools that you want to use in one nice little place. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the benefits of using Canvas. I'll show you what it looks like. So, oh, great, Shelby, that's awesome. She said I can even incorporate this in my plans to teach GT. Yes, this is a great way to do some different GT extensions, so that's a good idea. All right, benefits of using Canvas. One of the feedbacks that one of the things that I like is, again, the quick feedback. It will tell you exactly how many kids have and haven't done the work, and it timestamps the turn-in time and tells you exactly how many days late it is, the exact moment that they turn in an assignment. So that really eliminates the, oh, I turned it in, is it not there? The internet must be broken kind of excuse, which a lot of my high schoolers think that they've mastered, but they haven't. So I really like that, the timestamp on that. Another thing that I love about Canvas is it has incorporated a little grading system into it called SpeedGrader. And you can customize a rubric. You can decide how many points that you want it, and you can go in and individualize the rubric and give the grade that way. You can also leave video comments, which I absolutely love, because let's face it, how many times have we had a paper turned back to us and it had comments all over it, and we put it in our folder and we never look at it again? Our kids do the same thing. And so when my students wrote an essay on Hamlet, I was able to go in and record a 30 to 60-second video of, hey, here's a comment of, it's a glow and a grow. Here's something that I love that you did, and here's an area that I think we can improve on. And they really loved the personal touch. They thought it was really cool. So I really liked that. It's also really easy to share information, similar to Google Classroom, and you have access to something called Creative Commons, which is basically like a big share fest. Anybody that has made an awesome lesson or something called a mastery path, where it's like lessons that all connect together, they will put it in the Creative Commons, and you can go and you can borrow them and you can use them yourself, which is so, so great. I wish that would have existed when I was a first-year teacher. So if you're teaching something like the solar system and you want to go into the Creative Commons, there's probably a mastery path or a module there, and you can just tweak it, and it's great. It's also super easy to set up and invite kids and parents, much easier to put parents into the system than Google Classroom. Same thing, the assignments show up on a to-do board, on the dashboard, in the calendar. It looks a lot more like Blackboard to me than the other. It does consolidate time and paper. The assignment times are customizable. So if you guys noticed in the Google Classroom, I had to create a separate class for each block. I now can have one English 3 class, and I can differentiate the due dates between my A-day kids and my B-day kids. And so that's pretty cool. Makes it a lot easier. And there's also this concept called a module, where you can create groups of assignments, files, all of those things together, whereas Google Classroom is more of just a streaming kind of thing. So this is what the dashboard looks like for Canvas. As you can see, I have my creative writing class, my AP class, and then I have my English 3. And I also created a practice course. If you see that cartoon lady holding a book, one of my students in graphic design made me an avatar, so I love it. All of the things that I've learned how to do, I've done in my practice course. I just made it myself to kind of experiment on how to do different things. If you look at the top right corner, that is my personal to-do list. As you can see, I have podcast analysis presentations that I have to grade for my creative writing kids. And 17 of them out of 17 have turned them in, and that's what I need to grade. So that's pretty cool. It's very user-friendly. So this is an example of what it would look like when I click on the assignment podcast presentations. So this is what SpeedGrader looks like. You can see the file that my student submitted. She analyzed the podcast Limetown, which, by the way, is excellent. So shameless plug there. And it will tell you exactly when she submitted it. So this was a day late. It was due on the 13th. And she submitted it on the 14th that morning. And then you have the file here if you can download it. You have the assignment. I did not attach a rubric to this yet. I'm going to do that before I grade it, and then I can make my comments. And as you can see, there's an attachment if I wanted to add an image, if I wanted to record something, or add a video, and then I would submit that. One of the other things that's really great, if you notice on the top right corner, it says Student 2. All of Canvas grading is anonymous. So whatever they submit, unless they type their name on the document, it keeps it anonymous, which is really, really wonderful. At first, it really got on my nerves because I like to kind of hear the kid's voice when I'm looking at their writing, but it really removes that bias there of I'm just looking at the work. I'm not looking at so and so who never turns in assignments work, or so, you know what I mean? And as much as we would love to say we're not biased when we grade, this kind of keeps you accountable for that, which I think is really interesting. I always tell my kids, if you want me to know, like if you want me to know it's you, make sure you put your name on your assignment there. So I think that's a really interesting thing. All right, so when I go to a special course, this is what the homepage looks like. I customized my homepage. I made my own, and I did little welcome videos for them, so you can embed. It's basically like 30 seconds of me saying, oh my gosh, yay, you're in my class. Here's what Canvas is. Here's some of the links. Stay tuned for these things. And then I put a bunch of helpful links that they might want to use throughout the year. If you look on the left where you see the menu, you see that some of the choices are in bold and some of them are faded out. I've customized mine to be so clean, not cluttered. I don't like my kids to have too many options, too many things to click on. And I make use of the modules, which I'll show you in a second. And once they can access the module, they can access everything else. So that's pretty cool. On the right, I have the choice to import different things from the Commons. I can go and I can set up all sorts of customized things for my course. So here's an example of what a module looks like. So for an elementary class, if you wanted to do some extensions and you wanted to give your kids some more multimodal things to look at, maybe you're teaching grammar and you want to give them a link to an online game that they could play, or a short video that you made, or a rubric to a project that they could do on their own, or different activities, and you want them collected, you can do that in a module. Now, I'm pretty basic. I do mine by 6 weeks because I teach 11th and 12th grade kids. And so they compartmentalize in 6-week chunks, so I kind of have to do that as well. This is an example of what our third 6 weeks looks like so far. We have one assignment, and that is notes from a Wuthering Heights Socratic seminar that they have. And then I have a file, which is their reading schedule that I updated. And then I have a discussion post that was optional because we read a poem that I thought was really neat, and then I saw a blog post that connected it, so I told them that that would be optional. The bottom file here is an example of, it's kind of a cropped example of what a discussion post looks like. Again, it looks a lot like Blackboard. I find that my students' writing is so incredible when they use the discussion boards. It seems like because it's risk-free and it's not something that I'm clicking to turn in, I'm just posting on a board, they tend to experiment a little bit more. They use more efficient voice, they play with syntax a little bit, and I always require peer comments as well. They have to respond to a peer, and they are so kind and constructive with each other, and it's really helped me to create more of a positive classroom culture. So as far as the negatives of using Canvas, so it is not a free application like Google Classroom. Most districts are, as far as districts that I'm familiar with, are moving towards Canvas. I saw a comment on the right, Dr. Symington, you said Arlington ISD uses Canvas. Right now, Mansfield ISD hasn't quite figured out what we're doing because our Canvas is paid for, I think, by Region 11. And they're worried that Region 11 might change its mind, and so they don't want to commit all of their teachers to using Canvas. But we kind of have an option of whatever we want. We have Canvas, the district has paid for it if we want to use it, but we're not tied to it. I know Carroll ISD, everybody uses Canvas. It's kind of the newest and biggest and best thing, but again, it's not free. There's a little bit of a learning curve as well. So I'm one of those people that if I have the time and I have the mental energy, I can learn anything. I consider myself to be super tech savvy. I had a mental block against Canvas for a really long time just because Google Classroom was so easy and I was super comfortable with it. But I sat down over the summer and I said, I'm going to figure this out. So you kind of have to do the same thing with your kids. It can be a little intimidating if they've never used it before. So what I did is I created, or I take that back, I found a module on Creative Commons on Intro to Canvas, and I tweaked it and made it work for me. And then that was one of my first week of school activities, is that the kids had to check off that they had looked through the module and looked through the tutorials there. So like I said, it's a little bit overwhelming. Again, I took an online course. I really wanted to customize it, and I was having trouble with my homepage. So I contacted one of our district technology people, and they came over to my classroom, and they sat down with me, and they helped me step by step. So most districts have a person like that or people like that, and they love to sit down with teachers because they miss teaching in the classroom. So they love to help. And again, it requires internet access. So I know that was a lot of information, and I was kind of going 90 to nothing because I didn't want to bogart all of the time. Does anybody have any questions about Google Classroom or Canvas? If you want to type those in the chat, and we can just have a little Q&A.
Okay, awesome. I love it.
Dr. Simingson, I cannot hear you. I saw you, but I cannot hear you. No questions? Shelby, do you have how often Mansfield ISD uses Canvas? I can tell you, so right now I am at the high school level. When I taught third grade in Mansfield, we were just starting to dabble into the LMS world. I was using more of like a class blog, but I was having trouble. I was kind of doing my own thing and kind of keeping it connected. I do know for sure that most of the middle schools use Canvas, and I know at least 2 high school campuses that it's mandatory that their teachers use Canvas. But then you have 3 other high school campuses that are like, hey, whatever you use is fine as long as you use something. One of the things, just kind of fun fact while Dr. Simingson gets reconnected here, the thing that we had to use before Google Classroom was called iTunes U. I don't know if any of you have ever had experience with iTunes U. If you have, shout out in the comment section. But iTunes U was just kind of a way to consolidate your course, and it was a way for kids to access documents. And we were all required to put all of our documents on iTunes U, and then they would put it on the Mansfield ISD page because every one of our high school kids had an iPad. So in their mind, it was Apple to Apple, and that worked. But Google Classroom is relatively new. A lot of these things have only been around probably the past 3 years. So people who've been in the classroom for a really long time and they're kind of comfortable with the thing that they've been using for a while, it can be kind of tough switching. So as far as my campus, I know on my team of 8, we have 3 of us that use Canvas, 3 of us that use Google Classroom, and 2 of us that use iTunes U still. That's a great question. Daniel, you prefer Canvas more? I do too. Do you plan alone or with a team? And where do you get your teaching ideas for using Google Classroom and or Canvas? That's a great question. So my campus is pretty unique. I do a lot of my planning alone simply because we only have 2 English teachers, 2 social studies teachers, 2 math teachers, and 2 science teachers because it is an only 11th and 12th grade campus, and we have small class restrictions. Again, it's a career tech high school, so we have all of the different career pathways, and students from all over the district get to kind of bus in, bus out, but some of our kids get to stay, and then they graduate from that program. So I do plan alone because I'm the only one that teaches my particular content. One of the normal things, I will say that is not normal. On almost every single campus, it is a mandatory thing that you have something called PLC time, and that is professional learning committee, where you use one of your planning periods to work with a team and to plan. As far as teaching ideas for technology, most districts offer tech trainings. And so Mansfield, we have tech trainers that they will do different online courses or webinars or things like that, and they will offer those to us. And so I knew with Canvas I wanted to do that, so I signed up for an online course over the summer. But also, if you need help with something, you can always just ask for help. And I got a lot of my ideas simply asking for help. I would put things on my social media. Hey, have you used Canvas? Tell me how you use those things. So I find a lot of my teaching ideas online and just collaborating with some kind of a professional learning community.
Okay, awesome. Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear?
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
having a wonky evening.
It is
um,
okay.
I heard most of what you said. So I had one more question, and you kind of answered it, but did you said when you were learning how to use it, you took an online class. Where did
I
you
did.
take that class? Was it through your district?
It was. It was through my district.
Okay.
So my tech trainers, they created a Canvas class because they had so many teachers requesting that. However, I will say that on YouTube, I learned how to set up and
Oh,
personalize my
cool.
homepage. So,
Oh, okay. I'm a huge fan of YouTube, and so yeah, you can teach yourself anything, um,
absolutely.
and that's great. Are you let's see, so how did you learn to use Google Classroom? You're kind of a combination, like self-taught, the district,
Mhm.
self-determination.
Well, and again, I've been teaching. This is my ninth year in the classroom, and I will tell you that my first year, I kind of was in survival mode of people kind of giving me lessons of saying, "Here, we're going to do this. I'm making you an extra copy. Put that in a binder." And I had binders upon binders of possible lessons and handouts and all of those things. And it wasn't until the summer after my first year that I was really able to even mentally process, and sit down and say, what are some things that I feel like I did really well, and then what are some things that I have no idea what I'm doing and I want to feel really confident in the next school year. So I use my summers to kind of sharpen my tools.
Oh, that's great. I love it. And then I'm a big fan of learning online. So like Twitter and social media, there's like a
Yes,
millions of ideas out there. So it's kind of
absolutely. One
gather.
of one of my favorite professional learning networks is on Twitter. I follow hashtag AP Lit Chat
Oh,
because,
cool.
yeah, teaching AP Lit was really intimidating at first. It's an AP course, 12th grade kiddos, and they have a chat every Sunday night at 8 o'clock, and so I can be watching, Game of Thrones and participating in an educational experience at the same time. So I get lots of great ideas from Twitter.
Oh, I love it. Well, that's awesome. Did you guys have any more questions? Let's see. Shelby said follow Mr. D times 3 on Instagram and Twitter. I forgot about Instagram. That's great. And
Yes.
Shelby, what does he teach? Or do you know him too?
I saw him on Ellen. I can't
Oh,
remember. I think he teaches like maybe fifth and sixth grade,
Yeah, I think
maybe.
he's like
okay.
in middle school, like around the Chicago area, but he's really big on inspiring his students and like having a
Oh,
really great
cool.
classroom system where it's really empowering and the students are able to learn far more. Like his methods have been really proven to kind of improve on test scores, improve on their overall, just inspiring kids to want to do better. And I think that's one big thing that we should want to try to
Mm, totally. I'm going to check it out. That's great. I need to start watching Ellen, I guess. Oh, great. I think we're going to wrap up your part. And if you want to hang on for a couple minutes, I'm just going to mention, if you want to
Sure.
chime in, I'm just going to mention 2 districts. I'm a huge fan of lurking on the internet to find ideas. I'm like you, I like to just
Yes.
scour around for ideas anywhere and everywhere. So for the students in the class, every district is different with how they approach. Even the same district can change, and so keeping track of how a school district approaches literacy can be tricky. So I just get on their website and look for some key information. So have some examples here, and you can look at these on your own later. Austin ISD shares a lot of information about their literacy plan, and then they have a little statement about it. And so I think it's a great idea to look at different districts' literacy plans just to kind of see how they approach literacy, because there's not one way to do it. And even if a district says, oh, we do balanced literacy, that might mean something different depending on the district. And so I just have a couple slides that you can check out on your own And you can see Austin's using Google Docs to put all their information. But check that out. And then, so Austin is one. Fort Worth has they have a diagram, which I think is awesome too. And they use the workshop model. So these are great things to investigate, particularly before a job interview, because you can say, oh, I saw that you guys use Reading Workshop. Here's what I think about Reading Workshop, or how I would do it in the classroom. And that kind of thing. So you're like well informed at these kind of at a glance kind of things. And so I don't think I have Mansfield on here. I just found Fort Worth and Austin, but they're really good kind of overviews, so you can get a big picture before you start teaching in, say Fort Worth or wherever you end up going. And some districts don't have this information online. I wish they all did, but it's just something you can go Google around and look for. So did you want to say anything, Katie, about literacy frameworks or?
Oh, I just want to say, like, I totally agree with you as far as looking at curriculum documents. I know Mansfield's, the curriculum page is kind of hidden, but once you get there, it's really great. And what they're trying to do right now is to transition a lot of our secondary English teachers to incorporate more of a balanced literacy model. And so we have lots of nice little graphic organizers and little infographic type things that show like what we're trying to do, as well as different scope and sequences that show you exactly like what kind of resources are available for the district and how they structure up their curriculum between each 6 weeks.
Oh yeah, so so all the organization, and Austin has some of that, I think, for people in the class. But you can check out the Austin plan. They're always changing up things. But I used to teach in Austin, so that's how I knew that they have a lot of information online. So yes, well, great. I think that's it. We went kind of right up to the end. But for the people on the webinar, tell us something that stood out to you mainly from Katie's guest lecture or presentation. It's just amazing how much you can organize on those learning management systems. Like, to me, I'm like you. I used to worry about losing papers. It's like it was a huge anxiety for me. And even teaching at the college level, I was always worried about losing like a stack of papers and then like everything falling apart. And so with the digital, you don't have to worry about that.
I've even had, I know some of our math teachers that are still very much pen to paper, they have their kids take pictures of different problems and post them in Google Classroom just for that kind of accountability, so that it's there just in case they lose the paper.
Oh, I love it, like a backup.
Yes.
That's great. Well, good. Any comments, you guys? Questions? Let's see. We've got some questions over here. I'm guilty of not being well organized. Yes, me too. I'm very organized when I'm digital. With pen and paper, I tend to be less organized. So you might end up being the same way. Shelby says, I definitely want to know more about integrating technology, especially, and ask for help. Don't be afraid. Play that first year teacher card, or even second year teacher card, or however, and just say, I really want to, better my practice.
Well, and I will tell you, Shelby, I would say most bigger districts in Texas, I know for sure, they do kind of like a little new teacher boot camp. Like Mansfield, we have a 3-day in-service called MTOP, and I have no idea what it stands for. I'm guessing the M is Mansfield. But part of that is they'll help you kind of set up your like we have a district or a teacher Google Drive that we get to use, and your email and all of those things. And then a lot of the tech trainers come and present to us in smaller groups and say, hey, here are some things that you might want to look at, and you might want to examine, and here are some really easy things that you could do. And if your campus is using an LMS, then they're going to hook you up with that before school starts. So there's a lot of great resources that they want you to stay. They want you to feel welcome when you get hired into a district. And they want to make sure that you're equipped to be successful. And I'm really excited that you work at TIPS because it's a great school. Welcome to Mansfield, Shelby.
That's great. Well, great. I love it. Yeah, and teacher retention is a big thing. Like, we want to keep teachers in the field. So you're right,
Yes.
they do want to support. And so just don't be afraid to ask for help. So great, thank you so much. Let's give our speaker a round of applause, and then we're going to kind of wrap up this evening. And Katie, just be sure to send me any information you need to send me. And then let's final applause for Katie.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
letting me tag along.
This is great. I learned a lot too, so I love it. I'm going to stop the recording.